Madison Square Garden will be the place to be, not only in New York City, but in all of college basketball for Big East Tournament quarterfinal Thursday. But there's still a lot to be decided upon to get to that point. We'll talk about it right now on Big East Shootaround. Back in our digs, the New York City studio. Hi, everybody. John Fanta here with you, and a lot of storylines in this conference right now. You've got all 10 teams in the net top 75. So what does that mean to you college basketball followers who might not know that as well? That means that every road game you play in this league is considered a quadrant one opportunity, considered a quality road win. And that speaks volumes about the depth of this league, one that has 7 teams projected in Mike DeCourcy's latest Fox bracketology. Coming up on the show, we'll play the blind resume game. I'll look at 2 resumes, break them down for you, try to predict whose exactly it is. Plus, we've got Fox College hoops analyst Nick Baugh with his crystal ball predictions. Who will win the Big East regular season title and who will win the Conference Player of the Year. With just about 10 days left of conference play, just a week and a half left, it's a good time to start talking about those items. But a lot of basketball to be played and a lot to be decided upon, which gets us to our headlines. Number 1. This has been the most eventful Big East regular season title race since the conference reconfigured in 2013. You've got a 3-horse race that's going to potentially go down to the final Saturday. We have not seen that in the Big East since league reconfiguration. Seton Hall at 12-3. The Pirates are at Marquette Saturday on Fox before hosting Villanova and then going to Creighton. The interesting number for the Pirates, they're 6-1 in Big East road games this season, with 2 of their final 3 on the road, tough atmospheres in the Midwest. That does bode well for Seton Hall. They're on a bye this week. The main competitor, there are 3, but the one that I think gives them the biggest run for their money because they've got a win over first place Seton Hall is Creighton. Blue Jays 11-4. In conference play. They are 15-1 at home. And they have 6, count them, 6 quadrant 1 road wins. That's second most in the country to Seton Hall. Creighton at St. John's on Sunday, and then home to Georgetown and the Pirates. Again, the Blue Jays, they've won 15 of their 16 home games. If they can beat St. John's at Carnesecca Arena, you come home for your final 2. Villanova at 10-4. They're in action tonight as we're setting the table for an FS1 doubleheader. The Wildcats are taking on a St. John's team that has just 3 conference wins and has struggled, but a team that makes you play 40 minutes and has done a nice job of competing, just having trouble closing. So for Villanova, 10-4, you can't count the Wildcats out because of the fact that they have won 5 of the 6 Big East regular season crowns since 2013. They've been right there, and they've earned that benefit of the doubt. This 3-horse race is going to be something, and with Seton Hall and Creighton playing each other a week from Saturday, you could have a Big East regular season title game on Fox. That's a very nice job done by the schedulers in this conference because it sets the table for a potential championship game in Omaha, Nebraska. If I had told you that would happen in the Big East back in 2010, you would have said, what are you talking about? Well, this league has really set itself up for a dramatic finish and quite the march because you've got 3 teams that are in the top 16 of the bracket reveals right now in different bracketologies, Seton Hall, Villanova, and Creighton. The table's set for some great drama, folks. Number 2 on the headlines, the Providence Friars. Man, are they surging. They have beaten 3 straight ranked teams at home. Coming out of nowhere. This Providence team, they're 9-6 in Big East play. They're at Villanova this weekend, and then home to Xavier and DePaul. So here's the thought with the Friars. They had major blemishes in non-conference play, a combined 4 losses in Quadrant 3 and Quadrant 4, but they're 7-8 against Quad 1, which sets Providence up. That's the 6th most Quadrant 1 wins in the nation. So they have several quality wins, and they've gotten those in Big East play. On top of that here, folks, those blemishes get negated by what Friars have done in Quadrant 2. Providence is 3-0 against Quadrant 2 teams. And they have a chance to go 5-0 if they can beat Xavier and DePaul next week at home. A potential unbeaten record in Quad 2 could negate some of those major blemishes that we see in Q3 and Q4. With the fact that the Friars have been able to gain so many strong wins, the 7 Q1 wins, we're going inside the numbers here, but this Providence team has gotten itself on the right side of Mike DeCourcy's bubble, hovering right around in Joe Lenardi's bracketology. They're right in the conversation because of the fact that the Big East has been so strong, and Providence has played like the team that they were picked to be, fourth in the Big East. And that is why right now they're 9-6 in the conference, and Ed Cooley's got them playing some really good basketball. Lawan Pipkins with 24 points this past weekend. Number 3, on our headlines, the Marquette Golden Eagles. Now, this is a Marquette team that all of a sudden is going in the wrong direction. Remember last year, Marquette had such a strong season up until finishing poorly. And that was the goal this season. The priority was for them to finish stronger. So for Marquette, they've got to get back at it at home this week. They're one of 3 teams in the Big East standings with 7 wins, Xavier and Butler, the other 2. You've got a Georgetown team that, frankly, the depth has been cut off for the Hoyas, and it's tough. It's tough when you don't have a lot of depth in a league that's this loaded to be able to sustain much. But Georgetown has 5 road wins this season, 5 true road wins. They've got a neutral site win over Texas. This is a Hoyas team that is going to challenge you, and Georgetown offensively, they've been consistent for the most part. They're in the top half of the Big East in scoring. So tonight brings an interesting test for Marquette. It's one that I think that they've got to handle because Seton Hall's coming in this weekend, and you don't want to have to be stuck up against the wall against Miles Powell and the Seton Hall Pirates, who have a full week to prepare. So a critical week for the Marquette Golden Eagles, and it gets going tonight, FS1, 8:30 Eastern Time, when Marquette welcomes in a Georgetown team that just 5 conference wins in the Big East. They got one over Butler about 10 days ago, but it's been tough sledding for them to try to be consistent. So interesting times here in the league as we look at some of the matchups here tonight. You've got a doubleheader on FS1, 6:30 Eastern Time, over at the Finneran Pavilion. Villanova has lost in Big East play to just one team at the Finn since 2013. The name of that team is the Butler Bulldogs. Villanova just does not lose at the Finneran Pavilion. It happens very rarely, and it doesn't happen much in conference play. It has only happened to one team. So, tall task tonight for St. John's. The St. John's team that has lost Mustafa Heron for the remainder of the season. He just had surgery today, it was reported. And it's got to be the LJ Figueroa show, but that's going to be a tall task because Villanova seems to be rounding into form at the perfect time of year. They've just got so much firepower. Speaking of firepower, how about these Creighton Blue Jays? They've won 9 of 10. You know them for their high-octane offense, but they're also getting it done with defense. This team has made program history. They've got 5 wins over ranked opponents this season. That is a program record in a single season. Defensively, that has been a big key. I caught up with their junior duo, Mitch Ballock and Tyshawn Alexander. Alexander, elite candidate for Big East Defensive Player of the Year. Ballock, he's like a coach on the floor. So I asked Mitch about Tyshawn's defense and much more in our conversation.
Obviously, the job he's doing is unbelievable. He's guarding everybody's best player while still doing what he's doing on the offensive end. When you have a guy that has length, I mean, he's 6, I'll give him 6'4", maybe. He wants 6'5", you know, but you get that length and that quickness. It poses a threat for offensive scorers, and I think he does a good job just taking that space away from them. And then whenever we can double them and do whatever, then we can get the ball out of their hand. But Tyshawn does a good job when he's by himself, and it really makes our jobs a lot easier on the other end.
Let's flip the table here, Tyshawn. Earlier this season, you guys played in the Fox Sports All Access game against Xavier, where everything was mic'd up, Coach McDermott mic'd up throughout the entirety of the show. And a highlight of the show was in the huddles, watching the game. Mitch is coming into every huddle, and he's fully accountable for all the good, for anything bad, owning everything. How much does that accountability set the tone for the rest of the roster?
It's huge. Mitch brings in a lot of energy to our huddles, and he basically, like, whenever coach is not around, he's the one that's doing all the talking. He can basically call him Coach Ballot, but You know, he's a great leader. He's doing everything right for our team, and that's why we're doing what we got to do this year.
So you've won 9 of 10, and talking with Coach McDermott yesterday, Mitch, he said early on in conference play, you had a loss at Georgetown. He felt like things were very close to turning, and he said, and then things turned. I'm curious, within the locker room, if it's a game, if it's a moment that you look at in your season where things started to kick up a notch that led to this run, what is that moment?
Yeah, I think Tyshawn would say the same thing as me. I think we were 2-3 after that Georgetown loss, and I remember Marcus, Ty, and I. Well, actually, Ty initiated it on the bus. He's like, "Yo, we got to figure this out. We got to talk because we're losing games we shouldn't be." So then we all got together a couple days after we got back from DC. We met in the room. We talked about it. We just talked about the little things that we need to do just to take the next step. And a lot of it was body language. A lot of it was attitude. A lot of it was just internal things that we can control. And when we talked about that and made an emphasis and put it in our minds that we can control that, then the rest will play itself out. So we really made that a focal point on the three of us. And then we figured if the three of us could figure that out and be high level in that form, then everybody else will follow. So I think we're doing a good job at that, and we've been a whole lot better since the Georgetown game.
I'm going to challenge both of you. You just brought up your teammate. Tyshawn first. One-word description for Marcus Zagorowski.
Outstanding.
Bucket.
That 7 for 7 from 3 this past Sunday against Butler, Big East Player of the Week. Tyshawn, did you know, or when did you know maybe, that Marcus would be this great of a player?
During the summer. Every day he was either the first one in the gym or the last one to leave of just putting up shots and getting the extra workout in. And Marcus did a great job of just getting better every single day, no matter what it is. Even during the season right now, Marcus is just a fantastic player. He's doing everything that we want him to do. He's been a great leader on the court. He's been a point guard for us too. But most of all, Marcus is just an all-around great person to have.
Mitch, what's your favorite Greg McDermott saying or something that he does that gets you every time?
Max got a lot of stuff. Like, you can never really read him. He's kind of, I don't know. Like, I'll just give you an example. Like, this is stuff that he comes up with on the fly. Like, we were playing the Butler game, and I remember we were getting hot, and I shot like a deep shot, and timeout, or the dead ball, we go to the media timeout, and I'm walking in, and Max just kind of looking at me funny, and I'm like, what? And he's like, you had 18,000 people standing up ready to just set this place on fire, and you blew it. And I'm like, and he just started laughing, and I was like, that's just the kind of relationship we have. I was like, just stuff like that. I don't know. I can't really say one saying, but he kind of just, on the fly, he'll come up with some stuff. But I don't know. That might be a top question.
No, I pretty much just say anytime like I either make a mistake or I look at him kind of funny, like he'll just look at me and laugh. And anytime I throw like a flip up to Christian and it honestly doesn't go my way or overthrow him, I look at him thinking that he made the turnover instead of myself and just start smiling and laughing. But Coach, he just I don't know, I can't really describe it.
Ty, how would you describe being in this Big East regular season championship race that you're in with Seton Hall and Villanova?
I pretty much say it's shocking because I never thought that we'll be able to be this good this year. Our team, we've really been pretty much just hushing a lot of people. And, you know, we have just a fantastic bond with each other. We're all grown up. We do everything together. And, like, we're just going to have to keep this thing rolling.
All right, welcome back here to Big East Shootaround. Great to have Mitch Ballock and Tyshawn Alexander for Creighton. Blue Jays will take on St. John's on Sunday. And if Creighton can win that one, they're set up in the driver's seat at home. when they will have Georgetown and Seton Hall to wrap it up, so should be interesting. Well, if anybody knows Creighton well, it is the Fox Sports analyst Nick Bahe. Nick covering all things across the Big East, but he's in Omaha. He played at Creighton as well as Kansas, and we talked about a whole bunch of storylines. Who do you think should win Big East Player of the Year? Who do you have winning the conference regular season crown? Well, we caught up with a bunch of different topics earlier this week. Here he is now, the Bahe Man.
The Blue Jays have now won 9 of their last 10. They're as hot as anybody in the sport. What has led them to taking off?
Well, I think some of it goes back to a year ago where a lot of these games, Creighton was right there and lost. So they're experienced. You know, they had shared experiences, and I think continuity is one of the hardest things to find in college basketball, and Creighton has it. So they've learned from the past. But when you look at this past month or this 10-game stretch here, I know what makes Creighton special is the three guards, Alexander Balak and Marcus Zagorowski. But I think it's the emergence of the frontline role players that have taken Creighton from good to great. You look at Damian Jefferson, Denzel Mahoney, Christian Bishop, and even Kelvin Jones in his 5 to 10 minute spurts. Those guys and their ability to impact the game, Bishop with running the floor and catching lobs, Damian Jefferson being versatile, Denzel Mahoney coming off the bench and scoring, Kelvin Jones setting good screens. I think that has changed the complexion of this team, and they've become a much better defensive team. You know, they're not the bad boys Pistons or anything like that, but they're underrated on that end of the floor. And John, you know this, the more Creighton can get out in transition, the more deadly they are. And they've done a better job forcing turnovers and stringing together defensive stops that's allowed them to get out and run. And when Creighton gets out and can get their pace going, they're absolutely a nightmare to defend. So it's a combination of things that have all come together, but it has been unbelievable to watch this team play here for the past month.
What a remarkable run the Blue Jays are on, and they're right in the thick of the three-horse race between Seton Hall, Creighton, and you can't count out Villanova. Who comes out on top in this race?
John, it's hard to not say Creighton right now. I mean, you feel like Creighton's playing the best right now. They're the hottest team in the Big East. They're really one of the hottest teams in the country. And Seton Hall has to go to Omaha on the final date of the regular season. And so 2 of Creighton's last 3 games are at home. They're a much better team at home because, you know, they get the crowd going, they get the pace going, they get the three-point shot going. As crazy as it sounds, I think Creighton is the team that, in a lot of different ways, is in the driver's seat to ultimately emerge as the Big East regular season champ, which is just remarkable to say considering where this team was a month and a half, 2 months ago.
And to your point, for Seton Hall, they have as tough of a 3-game finish to Big East play as you're going to find at Marquette on Marcus Howard's senior day. His final game in Milwaukee, that's Saturday on Fox. Then you're home to Villanova. Miles Powell and his senior classmates, a big night at the Prudential Center, but Villanova's going to be out for revenge, and they'll still have something to say about the regular season title. And then you go to Creighton, where the Blue Jays are 15-1 in Omaha this season. Needless to say, it's going to be a fascinating conclusion to the race. Now, beyond those 3, Nick, the Providence Friars are firmly in 4th place. Are you surprised?
I'm not. I know that sounds crazy for anybody that watched Providence play in the non-conference. You knew that eventually Ed Cooley was going to press the right buttons, and you knew this team had the talent. And it felt like it wasn't a matter of if, it was when this team got it going. So I'm not surprised at all. And this is kind of what Coach Cooley's done. The mark of a great coach is a team that finds their way to be playing their best basketball as the season progresses. This has been something that Coach Cooley has done time and time again. I'm not surprised at all that Providence has kind of righted the ship, for lack of a better term. I think this is a team that is dangerous. This is a team that could, you know, if they punch their ticket to the NCAA tournament, could win a game or 2 in the NCAA tournament. I'm not surprised at all because you felt like they had the pieces and it was a matter of time for it all to come together.
I'll save the $1 million question for last. Who's your Big East Player of the Year?
Oh, man. I don't want to cop out and say whoever wins the league. If it's Seton Hall, it's Miles Powell. If it's Creighton, I think it's Tyshawn Alexander. I think he's got to be in the conversation, John. What this guy's done defensively against Powell and Howard is just go check the numbers. I mean, it's something else what he did to those guys. And it's one thing to be able to defend, but also score. I mean, it's not like it's just totally taken away from his offensive game. So I think Tyshawn Alexander, if Creighton wins the regular season crown, should be the conference player of the year. But to answer your question, I won't wiggle out of it, Sean. I'm going to give it to Miles Powell right now. This guy, what he does night in and night out, I think there's an element of we become numb to both Powell and Howard and what those guys do. I mean, they're two of the best college guards you'll see. So gun to my head right now, I will say Miles Powell's your Big East player of the year. But I'm telling you, John, if Creighton wins, Tyshawn Alexander needs to be in heavy consideration to be the conference player of the year.
And to think that all these stars are going to be at one place, Madison Square Garden, March 11th to the 14th. I know there's been excitement around this tournament in the past, but it feels like heading into this one, we're not sure of who those two teams will be in the Big East final. In past years, you said it'll be Villanova and a bridesmaid, and we'll see what happens. Not this time around.
No, not at all. Howard could get hot for 3 days and carry him all the way through it. Kamar Baldwin has proven that he can put the team on his shoulders, and the way that team defends. Providence, I mean, they've beaten Seton Hall, they beat Creighton, they beat Marquette. Who's to say that they can't go win 3 games in 3 days? And oh, by the way, you have teams like Georgetown and Xavier and St. John's and DePaul who are capable that could come out of, if they end up playing on Wednesday night in the play-in game, they could win 2 or 3 games. So I'm totally with you. I know every conference says, oh, the league's crazy. Man, there is not a league as crazy as the Big East with its depth of talent. If you're going to be anywhere in mid-March, being in New York and at Madison Square Garden is the place you need to be. It's going to be really fun to watch the Big East tournament.
It is going to be something. Quarterfinal Thursday in the Big East tournament just 2 weeks from right now. And you think about this tournament bracket right now, if the tourney's starting today, you still have a lot to decide with the regular season champion, Seton Hall, Creighton, Villanova, in that 3-horse race. Who could have thought after non-conference play that Providence would be in a position to be in the 4-5 game? And that's where the Friars are trending. And I got to say, if there's a team that could be really dangerous both in the Big East tournament and then the NCAAs, it is Providence, because, folks, they defend you so well. They're extremely physical inside. They play that Ed Cooley style of basketball, and their backcourt has found itself. What they were doing on Saturday to Marquette, and Marquette's defense, Golden Eagles had no answer. Lawan Pipkins played like the guy that the Friars thought that they were getting out of UMass. He's starting to really get a sense for what Ed Cooley's looking for him to do, and he's found his jump shot as well. David Duke is one of the most improved players in the Big East, has taken his game to the next level. So let's take a look at the what if. What if the season ended today? You would have Seton Hall playing either St. John's or Georgetown. Then think about the potential for that semifinal matchup. Either Marquette and the Pirates, a rematch of last year's crazy tournament semifinal, or you get Cooley versus Willard. That just says fun. Then on the lower half, the potential for a Creighton-Villanova game in the semifinals just says drama. You've got a high-octane Blue Jays offense. You've got a Villanova defense that has really come into its own. And how about Sadiq Bey for the Wildcats? Could be in Brooklyn in the NBA draft this June against Tyshawn Alexander, who would be guarding him. That would really be intriguing. So the BET, it's inching closer. We are 18 days away from Selection Sunday, which leads us to the one and only blind resume game, where we have no music nor a sponsor, where I take a look at resumes and try to tell you who the teams are and then give you cases on both sides. So let's go ahead. I've got a bit of a cheat sheet, but I have no idea what teams I'm about to see. I've got some net rankings, I've got some records, so I might be able to piece together. This could be tremendous. It could be crazy. I don't know what it's going to be. Okay. One team's a Big East team, one team is not a Big East team. So you've got 18-10 versus 17-10, a net of 34, and then a net of 42. Strength of schedule's interesting. You know who this looks like to me? This looks like Xavier on one side, and then I know because they're playing tonight. Is this Rutgers on the other? Give me the unveil. Oh boy, okay. 1 for 1. I know Rutgers because they are 17-10, and the Scarlet Knights have struggled away from home. That's why they only have 3 quadrant 1 wins. Now, Xavier has also struggled in some big spots, but combined 10 Q1 and Q2 victories. That's 3 more than what Rutgers has. And look at the strength of schedule. You've played 3 less Q3, Q4 games. That's why the Musketeers are on the right side of the bubble. So I think that you look at the cases made there, Rutgers has more cause for concern. The Scarlet Knights are going to need to get a win away from home, whether it's one of their 2 remaining road games at Penn State tonight or then at Purdue, or if it's in the Big Ten tournament and they package it together, a home win over Maryland would be huge for them. But for Xavier, they're in the right spot. They've won 5 of their last 7. They should be going to the NCAA tournament for the 13th time in the last 15 years. Okay, number 2. Okay. 16-12, a net of 48, a strength of schedule of 11 on the right side. That, to me, is Providence. That's what I'm thinking. On the other side, a 10-0, so they're unscathed, a net of 53. This is going to be a tough one for me. I'm not exactly sure. I would have guessed Cincinnati is who I would have guessed. Who do we got? All right, it's not Cincinnati, it's Indiana. I was wrong. But here's the thing. The Friars are in the interesting predicament with the 4 Q3 and Q4 losses. They do have 1 more quadrant 1 win than Indiana. It's a good mark for Indiana that they're 10-0 against Q3, Q4. The Friars, though, with a combined 10 quality wins, and the strength of schedule matters. It really does. And this is where you see the depth of the Big East, in that you've got a double round-robin schedule, and it allows for you, all of your road games are quadrant 1 opportunities. Providence went to Marquette and won. They almost beat Creighton. The net is better. For the Friars, here's my thought with Providence. My thought is they're at Villanova this weekend. That's not a game that they have to have, but what would behoove them to do is to beat Xavier and DePaul next week at the Dunkin' Donuts Center. You win both those games. I've said 11 is the magic number. For this Providence team, you get both those games, then you're 5-0. 5-0 against Quadrant 2. That would give you 12 combined Q1, Q2 wins. You've got 7 Quad 1 wins. For the Friars, they've got a case, and it's growing in strength. And they're playing their best basketball right now. Game number 3. Let's go. Here we go. Number 3. 23-5. Wow, with a net of 6. Okay, here we go. A 13-1 Q3, Q4 record. So that tells me mid-major. That's what that tells me, is that they've racked up a lot of wins over teams that are not that good. On the other side, a net of 8 with a 21-6 record. Well, the 21-6 team, I believe, is Villanova. I believe that's Villanova or Creighton. Creighton's the top 10 net team in the Big East. They're the one top 10 net team. So that's Creighton on the right. On the left, let's take a look at who this is. I think it's a mid-major, right? Are they a mid-major? Oh, they're not a mid-major. They're Duke. Oh, my God. Oh, my. Well, I have to be honest with you. I am stunned. Okay. Well, I should have known because their net stayed the same, which, bring it back here for a moment. Okay. Forget this game for a second. Okay. All right. So hold on. Here's my question to everyone. Duke was a net 6. They lost by double digits to Danny Manning and Wake Forest, who are 4 games under 500. Their net ranking did not move. How is that possible? I just would like to know. I would like to know why the net ranking doesn't move at all. Not a smidge, not even one inkling. Nothing at all. It stayed the same at 6. And your counter argument could be, well, Duke has a lot of commanding wins. They've got double-digit victories. And I know that the net has an efficiency metric within it that matters, but let's throw everything out for a moment. The Q1 wins, they have 4 less quadrant 1-2 wins. They have 5 less quadrant 1 wins, and they're ahead of Creighton. To me, that doesn't make much sense. I know that margin of victory or margin of loss matters, but for this Duke Blue Devils team, I don't think, well, first off, any idea of them being the 1 seed is washed out now after losses to NC State and Wake Forest. But how are they ahead of Creighton in the metrics? I have lots of questions. I would like answers. Let's move on to game number 4. Okay, 15-12 with a net of 59 versus 19-9 with a net of 47. This is really an interesting one. We don't have a lot of quadrant 1 wins between these two teams. We only have 6. The two teams we just listed have more. I'm taking a look here. Okay, so this has to be these are two teams that have been hovering around the conversation. Bubblicious. These are two teams that are a little bubbly. So the net of 59, 15, and 12, I'm going to guess is Georgetown. Okay? On the other side, I was studying last 4 in. Right now, I believe they're in the last 4 in. Mike DeCourcy. Is it USC? Came prepared, folks. Came prepared for this game today. So here's the thing with Georgetown. They're in a tough spot in that I just don't think they've done enough at the moment to say that they're an NCAA tournament team. They're on the outside looking in. But this year in college basketball, you get a win tonight. You get a win tonight at Marquette. You could find yourself reversing roles with USC. That would be a 5th quadrant 1 win. Very interesting case. As you see with USC, they've racked up wins in Q3 and Q4. They've played twice as many quadrant 3 and quadrant 4 games. That's a well-done job by the production team here to display this Big East versus Pac-12 thing here. It is intriguing, and it bears noting what I think we noticed last year a little bit, that the net ranking, tallying up wins, sometimes matters more than the quality of the wins. Not always, but it does to a degree. Interesting. Is that our last one? This is the last one. Net 15 versus net 10. They're 20-7. Okay. 20-7, net 15. That is absolutely Seton Hall. Left side, Seton Hall. Right side, 22-5. Their net's 10. I'm thinking here. Is it Maryland? Yep. Oh, wow. All right. Folks, I'm telling you, I'm not looking at anything more than just a couple of different cheat sheet things, but I have no net rankings in front of me. Here's the sheet. I'll show it to you once we're done. The sheet I'm looking at, the production team is holding me to it. We wouldn't do this game if it were staged. Seton Hall, top 15 net. Look at the strength of schedule. They've got 5 more combined Q1-2 wins. And Maryland has played 5 more quadrant 3 and 4 games. This is where, to me, I'm not totally sure with the net rankings exactly what the metric is that separates Maryland by 5 slots, considering that Seton Hall, without Miles Powell and Santro Mamukelashvili, beat Maryland. They beat Maryland in Newark. Why aren't the Pirates getting consideration, and Villanova, and Creighton for that matter, all 3 of those teams? I think that there's something to be said about the strength of the Big East. You're looking at potentially 7 NCAA tournament teams. Is there something to be said about the Big East champion getting on the 2 line? Or rather, getting on the 1 line? You know, this is a league, I think you're looking at 2-3 seeds, but I think the Big East champion undoubtedly could be a 2 seed and should at least get some consideration for the 1, because you're talking about Maryland. You're talking about Florida State, who I think is really, really good. You're talking about Duke as of last night before that happened, and they've got 2 bad losses now in the last 2 weeks. And they're 6 in net. They're a 2 by net standards. So I just think it's interesting to me that you don't have a for sure guarantee that the Big East is going to have a 2 seed. And this league has shown itself that they deserve a 2 seed. The regular season champion, I think, when you've got 3 teams in the net top 15 and you're the best of those 3 teams, I think you got to get some consideration to be one of the 8 teams there on those top 2 lines. Let's look at the weekend slate. Here's what's coming up on Saturday. 3 games. Fox doubleheader, Providence, Villanova, followed by Seton Hall and Marquette. Marcus Howard Senior Day. He takes on Miles Powell. There's a lot on the line for that one. Big East Player of the Year race is on. You heard Nick Boss say he would pick Miles Powell. Marcus Howard looks to make a case. Sunday, CBS, the Bubble Bowl in D.C., Xavier and Georgetown. That will be a critical one. 5 games in total, 3 games on Saturday. That Fox doubleheader gets going at noon Eastern time. I want to thank you for joining us here on Big East Shootaround. Follow us tonight at Big East MBB. 6:30 Eastern time at St. John's and Nova. Wildcats looking to stay right on track, get to 11-4 in Big East play. And then Marquette and Georgetown. Golden Eagles need it. So do the Hoyas. Something's got to give. Thanks to Nick Baugh from Fox Sports. Thanks to Creighton, Tyshawn Alexander, Mitch Ballock for joining us. You've been watching Big East Shoot Around. Enjoy the night of hoops.